take all your questions that you have posted to us already. So really what we want to do today is to have this open discussion around the diet culture when it comes to taking anti-obesity medications. A lot of people have, I suppose, some debate whether to start a strict diet when taking an anti-obesity medication, because this is the time when they should make the most out of their journey. The medication is quite expensive, so should they also be putting a lot of effort from a diet point of view to make the best out of it? Or should they let the medication do its job by reducing the appetite, reducing the portion size, so that people don't need to worry quite a lot about the dieting for weight loss and have an easier journey? We're going to debate this, and we're going to, I think, talk about the pros and cons for each side of the equation, I suppose. So HazeL, we'll take your opinion first. What do you think? Should people diet or they shouldn't diet?
So my personal opinion is it really depends on the client. It depends who you are. And I was having a think about this, and I was even having a think about the different approaches that myself and Word take, going through our dietetic consultations with clients. Some clients really like to understand and learn about the specifics of their calorie intake, their protein requirements. Others prefer not to. So how I judge it is I have that conversation with clients and assess really sort of where their mindset is at. I suppose in terms of dieting itself, certainly the medications such as Ozempic make that process a lot easier. If your appetite is so significantly reduced, it's going to mitigate that need for all that willpower that you would otherwise rely on if it wasn't for the medication. So it goes without saying that it is much easier. I suppose in terms of dieting itself, there's no specific kind of faddy thing that I advise. Obviously, other than prioritizing your protein, and you'll hear that as a big theme throughout tonight, and probably in any more of the research that you do on nutrition and anti-obesity medications. So then I suppose that'd be my 2 cents on it at the moment. Where I don't know, do you have?
Yeah, no, I completely agree with you, HazeL. I think the word diet is very broad. So when I refer to diet usually, and especially when I'm speaking to my clients, I'd say diet is, when I say diet, I'm not referring to calorie deficit, or I'm not referring to weight loss diet per se. I'm referring to our general everyday diet. And while I think the medication will take a lot of the burden from people to focus about calorie counting and calorie tracking, they do need to follow a healthy diet. So there's the core, or the foundation of the diet has to be met, whether a person is taking an anti-obesity medication or not. So there are certain elements that we are going to be discussing today, and I'm sure if you have seen me for your consultations in Beyond BMI, we would have definitely covered these on the first session. So the pillars of the diet we're going to be covering today, and I think these are important, but the calorie reduction per se is less important to be doing in an effort to reduce it, and the medication can do that part of the calorie reduction.
Absolutely, Word. And we're in many cases going from one extreme to the other, going from thinking about food all the time to suddenly not. And actually, we may not consider the repercussions of that. If you're not thinking about food or your meals, maybe you're not planning your next meals, and that's where, as Word said, the importance of the diet quality really becomes very, very important to address.
Yeah. So just to remind our guests as well, if you have any questions, even if you've posted a question, but something might arise when we are chatting, feel free to type it into the chat box. We will be taking questions live as well. I think we will have this is all a Q&A, so we're not going to be presenting any slides or anything. So we're not going to keep some questions to the end. The questions are going to come and we're going to answer them as we go. I am now going to go through some of the questions that we have already received, just to see there are some common ones, some common themes. And let me see which one do we want to start with. Okay, here's a question. Do I need to eat or consume 3 meals a day? What do you think, HazeL?
So I would say this is very individual. As long as you are meeting your protein requirements, that, we're talking about sort of 1.2 grams per kilo of body weight over the course of the day, that's okay. Now, the, I suppose, special thing with protein is that you can't front load it and then forget about it for the rest of the day. You do need to spread it out. So I would be saying, yeah, a minimum of 3 meals per day. That may look a lot smaller than what you're used to, but you might be in the habit of having your breakfast and then a snack, lunch and a snack, and if that works for you, that's absolutely fine. I would just say 3 would be the minimum for me, because if we consider, okay, you want to get about 30 grams per meal, that would give you about 90 over the course of the day, and that's sort of in and around the minimum. So yeah, 3 is a good number to start with.
HazeL, what happens if a person wakes up with no appetite in the morning, which is very common when people take the anti-obesity medication? So if they don't have the appetite for a breakfast, what do they do?
So I would always be recommending, think about what feels nicest or easiest at that time. For a lot of people, that looks like something more liquid. So it could be a smoothie, it could be a protein shake. It could be something very light, like a protein yogurt and a bit of fruit. But the main thing is having something there in your fridge, in your cupboard, ready to go, so you're prepared. Because often, if that doesn't happen, you could very easily skip that meal. But if you prefer to wait a few hours and I suppose like a form of intermittent fasting, that's absolutely fine as well. That's not going to suddenly get rid of all your progress.
Yeah, and something I usually say is I don't care about breakfast as the name, as the title of the meal being breakfast, because some people say I don't have an appetite at 8 o'clock in the morning, but I might eat something at 10 o'clock in the morning. Well, that's your breakfast. So a meal, the names of the meals are useless, basically. Breakfast, lunch, dinner. You can call them meal 1, meal 2, meal 3. The name of the meal doesn't matter. It's about the effort, or what you call an eating episode. So it's about the eating episode that you have, and the timing of that does not really matter. So whether you have something, if you break your day into a meal, so meal number 1 before 12 o'clock, then you can have meal number 2 before 3 or 4 p.m. and then you can have meal number 3 before 7 or 8 p.m. So that is still your 3 meals a day. It didn't follow the cultural breakfast, lunch, dinner timing, but it doesn't really matter. So you're eating when you have an appetite for it. The other thing is, as weird as it might sound, but I am known for my weird theories. A cup of a latte, a skinny latte, for example, I would consider that a meal on its own, because that is giving you your milk, so that's dairy, giving you protein, not as high as an eggs meal or a smoothie with a protein supplement into it, but it is still a filling meal, especially when you're taking an anti-obesity medication. A skinny latte can just kickstart your day. Still, there's at least 7 grams of protein, if not 10 grams of protein in there. So and a meal does not have to be complicated.
Yeah, and I completely agree with that word. And what I discovered recently, and I don't know, has anyone else used this before, is collagen powder.
Okay.
So I know there's a lot of hype around it, but if you're adding for example, your collagen powder into your skinny latte, that's about 17 grams of protein.
There you go.
So,
and the collagen is way smaller. I haven't used it myself, to be honest. I've only been using like whey protein, so I must get into the collagen supplementation now.
It's lovely, and
but it's a smaller quantity, like smaller powder.
Yeah, absolutely. So it's not as obvious that you're having something protein rich, but you're still ticking that off the list.
Yeah,
definitely give it a go if you haven't tried it.
Absolutely. So there are always ways around it. I think we are stuck for so many years with the normal dieting culture that we put a lot of pressure on ourselves to eat healthy. And we think that healthy eating has to be complicated. Otherwise, you're not doing it right, because it needs to take a lot of our daily effort. The reality, we all have full-time jobs, and we work more overtime on top of our full-time jobs. So actually healthy eating should be very simple. And I think if you complicate it, it's not healthy anymore, because then you're adding stress into your mental life or mental health, and that's you're causing a bit of an imbalance there.
Mm-hmm.
All right, so let's see more questions. Again, just to remind everyone, you are more than welcome to be having a discussion with us using the chat box. I think you also have the ability to unmute your microphone, so please feel free to engage with us either verbally or via the chat box.
Don't be shy.
Don't be shy. No, this is for you, and we're here just to have this online chat, basically. Cravings, how do I stop them?
Mm-hmm. This is one we get asked all the time.
Yeah,
it's a huge question. And you know, I was having a think today while I was in work, and you know, what do we normally crave when we have a craving? Usually it's high carbohydrate, sweet, sugary, fatty foods.
Yeah.
And my personal opinion is, it's, you know, there's no easy way around the cravings. Mm-hmm. For most of the time. But what you have to ask yourself is, okay, I'm having a craving. What have I done leading up to this? So let's say, you know, it's 3 o'clock, you've had your lunch, it's the sort of mid-afternoon slump. The sort of main thing that I would definitely be making sure that you're meeting is your protein requirements. So did I get enough protein at breakfast? Did I get enough protein at lunch? And what that does is it satiates you, number one, but it balances your blood sugars so that your blood sugar levels aren't going up and then coming down very quickly. In the same way, you know, if you take a slice of white bread and you add a protein or a fat, that turns it from high GI to low GI, which is much more blood sugar friendly. So focus on the protein, but we're all human. There's going to come a time when you are just going to crave something, and you know, I don't know what you usually do, but I think there's a little bit of room there for just allowing a little bit of chocolate.
Yes, definitely. Absolutely. Like trying to lose weight, again, I'm saying, repeating myself here, but trying to lose weight should not be torturous and should be an enjoyable experience, because it took so long for you know, weight gain does not happen overnight. It takes many years for a person to be gaining a few kilograms of weight. So the opposite is also true. Losing weight is not going to happen overnight. So we don't want this journey of trying to lose weight to become a nightmare. You know, every morning you wake up and thinking, oh my God, I'm depriving myself today again from all the food I enjoy and love. It shouldn't be like this. I think it should, while you're focusing on your health, you should be thinking about, what is a balanced life? A balanced life is, if I really crave anything I love, could be a pastry, could be a chocolate, could be crisps, anything really. If I crave it, I should be able to enjoy it. But enjoying it does not mean stocking it in my house and eating it, having full access to it all the time. Enjoying it means I go out of my house. My house is my healthy environment where I don't actually stock any of these food in it. But if I want to enjoy it, I go to a friend or I go to a family member and have a cup of tea, have a chat, and enjoy that kind of food. So that it's only used for basically consumed during social occasions, rather than having access to it whenever you're craving. You are a human being. The cravings will be there. The signals will be there. These are physiological signals. The food that is high in fat and high in sugar are high reward value food, meaning it doesn't matter how much willpower you have, you will want that food because you've learned and your brain has learned that food is rewarding. The moment you eat it, the blood will go into your brain. It will just flush into it. So you can have all the willpower in the world. You cannot hold your breath for more than a minute or so, max. So the same thing, you can have all the willpower in the world, but if your brain knows that food is nice and it's there, you're going to want it. And you shouldn't feel bad about it. That's normal.
And what I like to do is I like to think about it sort of similar to exercise. So let's say, it's January, you're setting yourself really crazy exercise goals, let's say. How sustainable is that? How many times have you managed to keep that up long term? And it's the same with diet. We can very easily go super strict and cut your calories really low and tell you that you can't have all these different things. But how sustainable is that? Life has to go on. Christmas happens, Easter happens, Halloween happens every single year. So it's about kind of preparing for that and allowing a little bit of life to happen.
Yeah, exactly. And I think just to properly answer the question, because the question is, how do I manage the craving? So I think first we said, do enjoy the food. If you like it, enjoy it, but enjoy it in moderation. The other point that I'd like to make here, which I think actually HazeL did mention, but it is about making sure that by the end, so reflecting by the end of the day, did I meet my core elements of the diet? And I've been mentioning this a few times, so I think it's about time to actually list what these items are. But reflecting, did I eat my core elements of the diet? If you have eaten those foods, so you have taken responsibility to make yourself healthier today compared to yesterday with nutrition, then you are allowed to do whatever else you want to do because you've taken the responsibility. So the job is done. Now you can have a bit of fun with food. Mm-hmm. So when I say core elements of the diet, I am basically referring to the food pyramid, or the Irish food pyramid anyway. So a lot of people are aware of it. A lot of people know how it looks like, but a lot of people don't pay attention to the details of the food pyramid. And I think if you do actually just Google food pyramid and read the details that are written on it, on the pyramid itself, it is a really fascinating and a great practical tool to incorporate into our daily diet. So what I usually say, that the first pillar of the food pyramid is the fruits and veg. I break it down a little bit more to make it more practical, and I say what you need to make sure by the end of the day is that you would have consumed 3 fruits a day and 4 portions of veg. A portion of veg is what's equivalent to a plastic disposable cup. That's how I make my portions, basically practical approaches. So 2 cups, for example, at lunchtime, 2 cups at dinner time, and then 3 fruits, 1 fruit with every meal. Very doable. Now, if a person is on an anti-obesity medication, the appetite might prevent them from eating this much food, but that's not to worry, because if you do get hungry later on, when you are on the medication, that these are the food that you need to be increasing eventually. So if you can't eat it now, it's okay. We're weighing risks and benefits, but later in a few months or in a year, this is what you need to be aiming for.
And Word, why would that help us later on down the line? Why specifically the fruit and veg? What properties do they have?
So we're talking about fiber, definitely, for bowel movement. And when a person is taking anti-obesity medication, especially the likes of Ozempic, constipation and diarrhea are very common side effects. So constipation, particularly, the fruits and veg can help with that. But we're also talking about of course, the antioxidants, the vitamins and the minerals that are all available in the fruits and veg. So we're talking about colorful food that creates the bulk of the diet. So that's the fruit and veg. Then I'd say dairy is very important as well. And I'd usually say 3 servings of, and that's, by the way, not me, it's actually the food pyramid. So it's nothing I've made up. So 3 servings of dairy as well a day. Could be any combination of milk, cheese, and yogurt. That's important for calcium. So it's not important, and protein from a weight loss point of view, but the calcium is very important because during weight loss, we know from research that significant amount of weight loss will cause a reduction in bone density as well. So we know that we're sure of that from people who have bariatric surgery and lose about 35% of their weight. Their bone density is lower, significantly lower after they lose weight, and that puts people at a high risk of falls and injuries. So we want to be preventing that, and we want to be using the diet to create health gain, not just weight loss.
Mm-hmm.
Carbohydrates is something that I don't put a lot of focus on. I just say there's no goal for the carbohydrates, but it's basically trying to limit it to about 3 to 5 servings. 5 if the person is exercising, 3 if the person is a little bit more sedentary. And then, of course, our most important nutrient would be the protein.
Mm-hmm.
And that is always calculated by us, HazeL and myself, during the assessment session with patients on one-to-one basis. So these are the core elements of the diet. If a person does consume all of these upon reflection, you've done, then you can actually enjoy anything else you want. That's my approach to it anyway. Would you agree, HazeL?
Absolutely, absolutely. And, an interesting one there with the dairy, I think it gets a lot of unfair backlash in social media. But, just to sort of re-emphasize what Word was saying, and particularly for women, postmenopausal women as well, it becomes even more important. And actually your requirements go up to about 5 servings a day. So definitely don't fear it. From a saturated fat point of view, it has very little impact on our blood cholesterol, which can be an issue for a lot of people. So yeah, be liberal with it if you can.
Yeah, absolutely. And the number of times I've spoken to clients who would have stopped cow's milk and went into plant-based milk just because it is what everyone else is doing, basically. So there's not necessarily any GI symptoms that are causing the shift, or allergies or anything. So be careful when you shift, when you change your diet from your dairy, from cow's milk to plant-based milk. You need to make sure that it is still fortified milk and that you're getting the protein, and if it's fortified with calcium, basically. So there is a question there in the chat. I'll take all 3 questions, but Ashling is basically asking, if you don't eat dairy or substitutes, do you need to supplement with calcium tablets?
No, not necessarily. So calcium, although it's better absorbed from sources like your milk, yogurt, and cheese, it can be found in non-dairy and vegetarian sources. So, for example, nuts and seeds, particularly sesame seeds, which can also be eaten in the form of tahini. Your dried fruit, particularly figs, and tofu, particularly if it's calcium-set tofu, is a really good source of your calcium, as well as the plant-based fortified milks that Word was talking about. Important, though, to give those a good shake, because the calcium carbonate can settle at the bottom. So if you're opening a fresh bottle, you may not be getting the full quota of what it says per 150 or 200 mils. If you know for a fact that you definitely don't get enough of those foods in your diet, then a calcium supplement can be helpful. But I would always try and go down the food first,
Yeah.
route first.
However, sorry, go on, HazeL.
I think because it can be found in a wide variety of those foods, myself and Word can very much help you out if you're a customer beyond BMI, to try and fit those into your diet.
Yeah. I think some of the foods, however, that you mentioned, HazeL, are food that might be avoided by people who are trying to lose weight, like the dried fruits, for example, and the tahini. So it is important that we do have a one-to-one discussion, I think, with the person who wants to avoid cow's milk and rely on plant-based dairy, and then we can assess the diet, whether a supplement is required or not.
Yeah, absolutely.
All right. So another question that we have there from Fabian: do you recommend any time to stop to eat? Sometimes when I work till late, I feel desire to eat anything like fruit or yogurt, for example. So do people, HazeL, what do you think? Should people stop eating at a specific time of the day?
So yeah, well, I think so. Number one, if it's affecting your sleep, so I'm assuming people are asking this sort of later on in the day, like,
yes,
should I be eating after a certain time at night? If it's affecting your sleep, yes. You want to be ideally leaving at least 2 hours between your final meal of the day and when you're going to sleep. There is a little bit of research. I think that came out in around 2018, 2019, about the link between kind of shift working and eating. So when we're eating at non-traditional times, so during the night, and its effect on our basically blood glucose levels and our ability to utilize that effectively. So ideally, if you can eat within that normal circadian rhythm, that's going to be most helpful for your overall health long term, so the prevention of chronic disease. But it's not going to be the end of the world if you're having your dinner at 9 or 10 o'clock at night.
Yeah.
That'll be my take on it.
Absolutely, I agree with you. I think and creating a bit of a routine as well. So rather than having it random, like every day a different timing of the meals, just at least have, if you do have to eat a bit later in the day, just have a routine so that your body gets used to a routine, and you also get used to a routine, and you know what you're eating rather than just random snacks when you're hungry. So it comes back to the planning and preparing in advance.
And I think also, maybe if we're leaving our evening meals to really late in the day, we're tired, we're a bit low on energy, so maybe we go for the less healthy option.
Yeah.
Another reason maybe that it wouldn't be the best thing to be advising.
Yeah, but if it's a matter of a snack, that I think what Fabian is asking is, it's just a matter of a snack that they want to eat, absolutely go for it. I mean, a fruit or a yogurt, like, if you don't go to bed hungry, that's for sure. Breda is asking, I noticed how my slim daughter manages cravings. She pairs the craved food with other food, for example, cheese with apples, chocolate and strawberries. She eats less of the chocolate and cheese naturally. So by combining it with a fruit, she's eating, that is filling her up. So she's eating less of the other food that she's actually craving. That's a good method, I think. Yeah, I don't know if it's intentional or that's just unintentional behavior, but I think it's a great tip there.
And she's balancing her plate. It sounds.
Exactly.
The aim of the game.
One other question we're taking from the questions that have already been posted to us. This is, I think, going to be interesting. Let me just find it. It was about fruit. There you go. Can you eat too much fruit?
Yes, you can. I think. I think you can, definitely. Typically when we're going through the consultations, we have a question about how many portions of fruit and how many portions of veg. And what I try and get people to do is to have more veg than they do fruit.
Yeah.
At the end of the day, fruit is a carbohydrate.
Yeah.
And carbohydrates are just naturally much easier to overeat. So that's why I think people tend to be able to go a little bit overboard with them. Now, that's not to say that they can't be included in the diet. It's just about, putting a little bit of a number limit on it. So as we're just saying, maybe like 2 to 3 portions per day.
Yeah, absolutely. I usually say 3. One with every meal is a great way of doing it. Fruit and veg are not created equal. Fruit have definitely way more sugar and way more calories than veg. You can have a big bowl of salad and only get 30, 40 calories from leafy vegetables like cucumber, which is basically water and vitamins and mineral and fiber, compared to fruit will have a lot more carbs in it. So, and some of the carbs can be high GI, meaning it can raise your blood sugar quite high. So it is usually a red flag for people to say, when I ask about fruits and vegetables and people say, oh, I eat plenty of fruit a day, I'm like, okay, so tell me more about it.
And I think, fruit, it naturally sits out on our counters, doesn't it? It's in the fruit bowl. So it's there. You're walking past the counter. It's very easy to pick up a mandarin, pick up a few grapes.
And every time you're eating a fruit, it's another 100 calories you're getting. So do eat it. We're not scaring you or putting you off the fruit. Definitely eat it, but don't exceed the 3. In my opinion, the limit would be 3 fruits a day. If you want to have more, then go for things like berries that are going to be naturally very low in carbs. So and high in antioxidants anyway.
And there are specific ones. If you're suffering with one of the common side effects, which is constipation, there's very good research to suggest that kiwi fruits, so up to 2 kiwi fruits per day, can be really helpful at getting the bowels going.
Yeah, does the trick for sure. We are still very happy to take any questions on the live chat if you have any. And it doesn't have to be directly in line with what we are talking about at the moment. So another question that we have on the messages there. Oh, that's an interesting one. How to kickstart things again after the summer? We are definitely past that period of time now, but I suppose what we can reword the question is, how do we kickstart things again after any break?
Yeah. Christmas
is approaching soon.
I know, it's upon us. The Christmas songs have started. So this is something that I suppose in around September time, I was having lots of conversations about with clients, particularly mums. So, the summer holidays had suddenly come to an end, and the busy routine had started again. So dropping to school, dropping to extracurricular, and suddenly they have less time in their day to do things perhaps like your meal prep or the food shop, or just having that sort of precious time to yourself. So I suppose that's the biggest sort of change, or sort of what we call like a change of season, that I've counted on most recently. And in a lot of cases, what I do is I sort of throw it back to the client and I say, look, what can you get your husband to do or your children to do for themselves? For example, making their packed lunch, or giving a little bit of help in the kitchen, because I think perhaps, and particularly maybe mums and women, we take on a lot more of the workload perhaps in the house traditionally. So just that discussion about finding that precious time during those busy periods and back to school.
Yeah. And I think what I would usually be discussing with my clients is don't think about taking a break. So healthy eating should be a continuous journey. It's something that you do in a momentum. It doesn't stop. You don't just take a break from your health. You don't say, okay, this week I'm allowed to be sick. You should always be ambitious to make yourself healthier and healthier every day. Of course, life is not as easy as that, and it does have ups and downs. You have holidays, you have occasions, you have Christmas, you have Easter, you have whatever the occasions are. But what you should always be thinking every morning, when you're brushing your teeth, when you're washing your face, when you're dressing up, when you're cooking your breakfast, whatever you're doing in the morning, always think, today is an opportunity for me to be healthier than yesterday. This positive attitude. It doesn't matter if you're catching a flight, if you are indeed away in a hotel, on in a holiday, it doesn't matter. But today you want to be healthier than yesterday. So that means you are not taking a break from your health. Your health is still in the momentum. And you want to do, while you might be taking a break from tracking your calories, if this is your thing, you're not taking a break from eating your 3 fruits, your 4 cups of veg, your 3 dairy, and your proteins. These are essential parts of your daily life forever.
Absolutely. I just saw another question pop up there, word on the chat, and I think it's a very nice, apt one that we could all benefit from. So how to make better choices while on a budget? What would your top tips be?
I think making a list, what I would personally do is make a list of the food that I always enjoy, because sometimes we forget what, like we go through phases. It might be a yogurt or a high protein chocolate pudding or a supplement or a fruit or whatever it is. And we forget that we like these food. When you take a break from these food because you've consume them too much and you're like sick of them, and then you forget to go back on them. But always create a list and put it on your fridge or somewhere handy to go through. This helps you then when you go shopping to these are food you like, they are on your budget, you've tried them before, they work for you. And when you go shopping, instead of randomly picking up some random ingredients or snacks or meals, that you know what you're going for. So again, it comes to preparation and creating your own food book, basically, or recipe book.
Yeah, absolutely. I agree with that completely. And I think we can get very sucked into maybe doing specific recipes. So you look down this big long list of things that you need to include in this particular dish, and you go out and buy them. But actually pulling it back in, making it simpler. Not every meal has to be a pasta bake or a lasagna. It can literally be whatever random veg you have in the fridge, whatever random piece of protein you have, and then your carbohydrate. So taking the pressure off in that sense. One of my, I suppose, favorite ways of saving a bit of money when it comes to buying food and the food shop is on a Sunday, I'll open up my fridge, and this literally takes 5 to 10 minutes. I'll take a little sort of stock check of what's there, what's in my cupboard, so my dry section, and I sort of brainstorm about what I could make out of the food that I have left. So you may get about 2 dinners, let's say, out of that. And then that's going to reduce the amount of food then that you need to buy for that week. So that's another way of thinking about it.
That's a great idea, Hazel, and you can do that when you sometimes, like I get extremely busy and I keep delaying my shopping. Like I'm literally with no fresh food in the fridge, or at least not obvious ones, and I think I need to go shopping, but I can't find the time to go food shopping, and then you end up just creating these recipes from whatever leftovers you have, or like tinned beans and sweet corn and stuff, and you're like, you can actually survive for a good few days on whatever stock you have.
Yeah. And it's a great confidence giver as well. You make something and you're like, wow, that was actually delicious. It kind of gives you that confidence boost. Okay, I can do this. I don't have to sort of follow along. And I suppose that leads into the other one. Look in the freezer aisle. There's loads of options there at the moment. That goes beyond just your frozen berries and your frozen broccoli florets. That makes those times in the week. So, when it gets to Saturday.
And there is nothing wrong with frozen fruit and veg. If anything, they can be healthier than the fresh ones. They will be more nutrient dense for sure. So use frozen veg. Bulk up your meals with beans. So instead of just relying on beef, like minced beef, for example, if you're doing a lasagna or a bolognese or anything, do add some tins of beans if you like that. I personally love adding that into my. We have Sarah is asking us about how to calculate proteins. So how would I calculate the amount of protein I need to be able to make muscle mass and increase my metabolism? So the easiest way to calculate protein requirements would be 1 gram of protein for every kilogram of body weight. That would be the most straightforward method of calculating protein. To be building muscle mass, we do need to increase the protein to probably at least 1.2 grams of protein per kilogram of body weight. But I have to say, to build muscle mass, you do need to be at least in an energy equilibrium. So you cannot be in a deficit to be building muscle. Whenever you're in the deficit, you are going to be breaking down muscle. That's just, you can slow it down, but you're going to be breaking down muscle. What do you think, HazeL?
Yeah, I completely agree. You know, your body's only going to build muscle once every other single essential thing has been catered for in your body. So hence why you need to be in that slight surplus. The other thing alongside your protein would be resistance exercise. So your muscles are not going to grow unless you're putting them under some sort of stress. And it doesn't have to be pumping iron in the gym. It can be yoga on your mat at home, or Pilates. It could be, you know,
body weight exercises.
Body weight exercises, exactly. So it doesn't have to be fancy. But certainly 1.2 would be the minimum, I think, word, wouldn't it?
Yes.
Definitely.
Yeah. Okay. And HazeL, there's a question for you there on the collagen as well from Kasha.
Oh yes. Okay. Would you recommend marine or bovine? So my answer to this would be your taste preference. So I'm not going to be recommending brands, but I have tried both marine and bovine. My personal opinion is that the bovine just tastes a little bit better. The marine one does have a slight fishy taste. So that would be my preference, but it's the exact same in terms of collagen content. So there's no difference there from a nutritional point of view.
Okay, that's good to know. Well, I wouldn't know that answer. And then Ashling is saying, is that 1.2 gram per kilogram of current weight or target weight? This is a very good question, Ashling, and that's why we usually do our own calculations on one-to-one basis, because it does depend on your current weight. Is your BMI above 25, or are you now in the normal or overweight BMI? So the target, the grams of protein does matter. Like, we have our own criteria to calculate it. So to give you the most straightforward answer, just to help you to do it, I'd say 1.2 gram per. The most correct one is per target weight, basically per ideal body weight, but it would make the calculations a bit more complicated for just a lay person. What do you think, HazeL? I'm trying to make it as the more calculation friendly as possible for our clients. The best way to do it is by chatting to us on one-to-one, and we'll do it for you on the consultation.
Yeah, exactly. And you know, it's like anything. When we're working with BMIs in the overweight or the obese category, our energy requirements, our protein requirements, our fluid requirements are generally going to be a bit inflated, a bit above maybe what they should be.
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, I would normally go sort of 1 to 1.2 of actual body weight. But just bear in mind,
both are correct. That's why I think we're having a bit of a debate. Both are correct. Both methods are correct to do it. It does depend. Like, if your body weight is 130 and then we're multiplying that by 1.2, it's going to be a little bit of an unrealistic protein intake. It's going to make your diet very boring, relying heavily on protein. Whereas if your weight is 80 kilograms and we're multiplying that by 1.2, then it's easy peasy. Then everyone is happy with that.
Exactly. And it can cause stress, you know.
Yeah.
If you're not meeting it. So yeah, quite individual.
Any specific diet you would recommend to follow if someone is on the weight loss medication, such as Mounjaro? Specific diet, it's no specific diet would change from one anti-obesity medication to another. So we're talking about a healthy, balanced diet, not a fat diet. And the diet will be the same.
Yeah,
Would you
I agree.
agree, Hazel?
Yeah, absolutely agree. Completely agree.
Yeah.
If there was one dietary pattern that I'd recommend over everything, it would be the Mediterranean diet.
Yes.
And that's just because of the sheer amount of research behind it in terms of chronic disease management. But that's very similar to what Word was saying about the food pyramid. So there's a huge focus on fruit and veg, your whole grains, and then your lean proteins.
And since you mentioned the Mediterranean diet, Hazel, we had a question about PCOS. So the best diet for PCOS. So I would definitely say the Mediterranean diet for any person who is any woman who's suffering with PCOS. Would you want to give a little bit more details on what you think or how you define a Mediterranean diet, Hazel?
Yeah, so Mediterranean diet, it's based off of your vegetables and your fruit. There's obviously the carbohydrate portion of that as well. So your focus really is on your whole grains and your brown carbohydrates, and they're low glycemic index. And that's why, for example, conditions like PCOS, that's why it's recommended, because that's low GI is one of the core pillars of PCOS management. It also focuses very much on lean proteins and oily fish. So fish that's high in omega-3s. Again, with PCOS, that's another thing that we would focus on as well, is that anti-inflammatory omega-3 oils. And then the main fat that is recommended obviously is olive oil. And I think that's a delicious way to eat.
Absolutely. Using fresh spices and eating as part of a family gathering. So it's the social aspect of it as well.
More of a lifestyle, isn't it?
Yeah. Thoughts on intermittent fasting? I completely support it if it's possible for a person to follow it. I don't think it suits everyone. I'm from Iraq. I'm very open about this when I say to people when they ask me about intermittent fasting, I eat late at night. My dinner is very late, being the Iraqi culture. So I wouldn't be able to follow the intermittent fasting properly. But if it suits you and suits your culture and lifestyle, go for it. But bearing in mind some of the cons of it. And I would be happy to mention these. But Hazel, what do you think?
Yeah, I think my number one con would be if you're a physically active person and you work out in the morning, you just want to make sure that there's not more than around an hour between finishing your workout and having your first meal, ideally, just from a muscle preservation point of view. So as long as that's not an issue, again, I agree with Word. It can very much be a very helpful tool with weight management.
The other con I would add, Hazel, is when it comes to protein intake. So if you do need to split your protein intake, so if you have about 100 grams of protein requirements a day, and you have to be protein absorption happens at a maximum 35 to 40 grams at once. So you do have to take your protein intake spread across the day to be absorbing the most of it. So if you are restricting your eating to only 8 hours a day, you have to get 100 grams of protein. It's almost impossible. So that is something that you have to bear in mind on balancing your nutrients while you're doing the intermittent fasting. So we have about 10 minutes to go. So if you have any questions, please do type it into the chat box. What is the best way to drink diet whey protein powder to lose weight? I don't think there's anything called diet whey protein, but you're asking about whey protein. So whey protein is whey protein. Oh, or am I wrong, Hazel? I don't think there's anything called diet whey protein.
I think I'm just remembering when I was in Holland and Barrett during the week, there's a brand I think called Diet Whey.
Oh, right, okay.
It's just due to calories. I think regular whey is like 110 and this is like 98 calories per scoop, I think.
So it's similar to the isolate, basically.
Yeah,
whey protein exactly. Isolate.
Yeah, they're exactly the same.
You learn something new every day.
But whey, like this, and I'm sure Word, you agree with me, like protein powder, it's a contentious subject and we get asked about it a lot. I am a big fan of it.
I'm a big fan.
I'm a really big fan.
Yeah.
If we're looking at, the population of people who are taking anti-obesity medications, weight loss is their goal, and you consider they're higher than normal protein requirements, it's the perfect place to use something like a protein powder. Yeah. It's palatable, it's easy to consume. You can take it anywhere with you. Comes in a wide variety of flavors. Vegans, vegetarians, meat eaters alike can use it, and you can also use it in lots of different recipes.
Absolutely. And it ticks so many boxes. You get your protein, but also it's a nice snack to have, a very filling snack. You get the flavors that you enjoy as a snack. So if you're into chocolate, then you get your chocolate craving taken away. I look forward to but anyway, the question here is, what is the best way to drink it? I personally drink it two ways. One is as a breakfast meal. If I am having it as a meal replacement, if I'm having it as a meal, I would add a banana to it. So I'd add a banana and a protein scoop, milk, blend it. That's a meal, protein and carbs. Mm-hmm. The other way I would drink it is if I haven't had it in the morning and I exercise, then I take it after my exercise session. Mm-hmm. But there is no right or wrong way of taking a protein supplement. You can take it any time of the day. I just wouldn't overdo it. Mm-hmm. I would recommend one a day. What do you think, HazeL?
Yeah, I agree.
From a constipation point of view.
Constipation, and also just limiting your protein variety. When we're eating protein foods, let's say like chicken or beef or eggs or fish, it's not just protein. You're getting lots of other vitamins and minerals alongside that. And sometimes with the protein powders, they can be maybe not very well tolerated by some people in terms of gastrointestinal side effects. So, it could be gas or bloating, and as we're just saying there, sort of not helping the bowel side of things.
HazeL mentioned to have protein 1.5 after the strength training. What's the 1.5, HazeL?
So
1.5 hours after the strength training. Yeah, sure.
Yeah, so trying to get within that.
Yeah.
Because your muscles are primed after exercise for a certain amount of time. And you just want to maximize that, particularly if muscle preservation is your goal.
Absolutely.
And products like protein powder, and particularly the whey protein, it's very quickly and easily absorbed into your muscles. So that's where it comes in handy.
Completely agree. Having said that, if you haven't been exercising that day, you can take it any time of the day. So if you are exercising, good to take it after the exercise. If not, just still take it as a snack if you wanted to. Very good questions, HazeL. I think we should do another hour of this webinar.
I know. I don't even think we're halfway through them.
I know there's so many. We've received 100 questions on the spreadsheet, so we are trying to go through them. There are some common themes though, so I think we have covered a lot of even though we haven't answered specific questions, I think we've covered a lot of the themes. This is a nice question from Leslie. Poor appetite, low energy, and minimal weight loss. Any suggestions? So poor appetite, I suspect that she's on an anti-obesity medication and having poor appetite, fatigued, but not losing weight.
Yeah, okay. Again, something we see, or something that I would see quite a lot. With the poor appetite, I think that and fatigue, they sort of play into each other, don't they? If you're not getting enough calories in, you aren't going to have enough energy, or as much energy as you would have had before. I suppose, again, thinking about foods that you really enjoy. I remember when I was little, my mum used to always make me have sardines on toast because they were healthy, but it was not at all appealing to me. And in that same vein, when appetite drops so low that we're kind of like 1,000 or 800 calories maybe or less per day, that's when you need to be a bit more structured about it. So what I typically recommend for my clients is, when their food desire has dropped to such a level, I say, okay, well, we need to write this in the diary. So I'm going to have breakfast at this time, and this is what I'm going to have. And I do that for each of the main meals. With regards to the fatigue, often what I do is, if it's been going on for quite some time, I would recommend a nutritional supplement just to make sure we're covering all our bases.
Yeah.
Focusing on the B vitamins as well, which help to release energy. But usually the fatigue does pass. I don't know, Word, have you had that same experience?
Yeah, absolutely. And it's a vicious cycle. So if you don't correct one thing, you're going to be stuck in that vicious cycle. So fatigue will result in poor activity. That will result in maybe limited amount of weight loss. So if you're going to be completely sedentary because you're now very fatigued and doing nothing, that is ultimately going to slow down the weight loss as well. So you need to take yourself out of that vicious cycle. Force yourself to eat small portions of food. Indeed, like HazeL said, food you enjoy, even if it means a banana. We're talking about easy things like a yogurt, a protein supplement. You blend in a banana into it. That's a nice, easy breakfast. You sip on it slowly over a couple of hours in the morning, so you don't have to have it all in one go. You need to find the food that you enjoy and make yourself eat it, so that you get yourself out of that fatigueness, and then take yourself out to get some fresh air and move and walk. So that will help with the weight loss.
Mm-hmm. And it gets the ball rolling, as Word said, because they all very much play into each other.
Absolutely. The more you move, then your appetite can also actually improve a little bit, because you'll get hungrier, because now you're moving. Your muscles will need a bit of energy, so you will get a bit hungrier. Commenting about the lack of weight loss, this is a very one-to-one question. So it depends on how much weight you have actually lost, because a lot of people have, they lose a lot of weight. From a clinical point of view, think it's a lot of weight. For them, it might not be a lot of weight. So I don't know how much actually weight loss you've had that you're thinking is not a lot, and whether you have maybe already lost some weight prior to starting the medication, and now you've started the medication, there will be very little room for more weight loss. So I think that we need to have a bit of a one-to-one elaboration on, rather than generally answering it.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, shall we take one more question, HazeL? 1 minute, 1 minute.
Okay.
Okay, good snacks that aren't fruit.
Okay, my favorite.
Sorry, this is the first one that came in front of me.
I was hoping this would be asked. So with snacking, like all your main meals, try and make sure they're protein focused. My favorite one, and I think when we started recommending these words, Lidl and Aldi were swamped. They were bought out of the protein yogurts. Because they keep really well in the fridge. They can be any time of the day. They're quick. They're
okay, HazeL, you give 3, I give 3. So you give 3 snacks.
Okay. Protein yogurt.
Yeah.
Boiled egg. Nuts.
Okay. I say protein supplement, as in the milkshake supplement. Custard. I love custard in the evening. You make it at home, so freshly made custard, low sugar. Make it with sweetener, and not a high protein one, but a really nice bite to eat. The 1 fiber squares.
Yeah, my favorite.
Now fiber, sometimes called now fiber, sometimes called 1 fiber, depending on where you get them. So I think 90 calories per square, high fiber. It gets you that chocolatey thing that you might want sometimes.
Yeah, absolutely. No, I agree. I'm a big fan. It's the spot.
All right. Well, it's been lovely having everyone. Great engagement in the chat. Thank you for sending us all your questions as well in advance. HazeL, thank you so much for having co-hosting this webinar.
Oh, thank you very much, Word. Great questions, and I look forward to doing it again, because as we said, we weren't even halfway through it, so
absolutely.
Hopefully you can all join us again.
I think we can do one in the new year. So God, Christmas is very close, so I wish everyone who's here, who I will not be seeing until maybe after Christmas, a very Merry Christmas already. And enjoy the holidays. Don't stress too much over the diet over the holidays.
Yeah, absolutely. I second that.
Yeah. All right then. Bye bye.
Nice weekend, everyone. Bye bye.